Boy, did that feel like the Kansas game all over again. Ugh.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. It might as well be November, what was that, the 8th, 2024? Because this felt like losing at Kansas all over again. What's up? Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers, place a $5 bet. If you win, you're going to get $150 back in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Want to welcome in all the everydayers. Welcome in all of our Locked On Tar Heels insiders and, of course, our Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. It's good to be together to commiserate together because you've joined us for a therapy session. That's what we call it after a Carolina loss. And especially one of this variety when it feels like we're banging our heads against the wall and doing the same thing all over again. That's where we're at. Carolina loses to Florida in the Jumpman Invitational, 90-84. The Tar Heels fall to 6-5 on the season. And this was Florida's just second quad one game all year so far. Second one in as many games. They played Arizona State on Saturday night. This is barely a quad one game. And it doesn't matter. Carolina, has played all of these quad one games. Much more difficult schedule. But at some point, losses become losses. It doesn't matter how good the teams you're playing are. If you don't beat any of them, what do you want, right? So, Gators were undefeated coming in. They still are. Carolina still cannot get that elite win they're looking for. So, here's where we go on these post-cast live reaction shows. We'll unpack several specific things. We'll take a couple of ad breaks. We'll look to see what kind of comments and questions you have that we can unpack. We'll do that towards the end. But where we got to start is how deja vu this whole thing is. I mean, very seriously. Did it feel like that to you? It felt like the Kansas game all over again. Dig a massive first half hole, get all the way down into the bottom of that thing, and just burrow around in the ick. Come out on fire in the second half, take a lead, and then just not have a clue on how to close and hold that lead and finish. That was this Kansas. Oh, and using the free throw line to work your way back. Although the second half of this one, Carolina kind of had some shot opportunities that would have really helped them at the free throw line and missed. Boy, it hurts. Carolina, all the way back from 17 down, took a 4-point lead. And I literally typed in my notes, put it in bold and underlined it. Can they do what they didn't do in the Kansas comeback? And the answer is clearly no. And it boggles my mind how these Tar Heels, some of whom are brand new, I get that. But with all the experience of RJ Davis and Seth Trimble, how can this Carolina team not figure out how to close? It continues to happen over and over and over. They get all the way back and then it's over. At some point, you got to figure out how to make the plays to get over the hump. And once again, Carolina was not able to. And it all started we'll get to the end of game. We'll get to the rebounds, the lack of, I should say, at the very end. None of that matters if you take care of your business in the first half. I feel I am ready to pull my hair out at Carolina's inability to come out ready to go with the same ferocity and intensity that they do. I mean, what they did coming out of halftime was wildly impressive. Where is that at the tip? Where is that at 7 o'clock Eastern time tonight? I didn't see it. Did you see it? No, absolutely not. It's mind-boggling, Carolina's inability to start well. Like it, if it's twice in 11 games, it's just a coincidence. When now it has happened in 7 of your first 11 games, there's a trend and there's something that has to be fixed. And the Tar Heels, whether the coaching staff or the players or a combination of both, have to figure out what that is. All 5 of Carolina's losses, Kansas, Auburn, Michigan State, Alabama, and now Florida, plus Dayton and Georgia Tech. So all 7 games that they've played against a high major opponent or Dayton, who might as well be, they have been down by at least 8 points in all 7 of those games in the first half. If you take away the Georgia Tech game, they've been down double digits in 6 of their 11 games against high major opponents. Tonight against Florida, it was as deep a hole as 17. It's almost like Carolina wants to dig a hole and just sit in it and play in it and like, oh, let's see how dirty and messy we can get in our deficit. It's shocking how consistently it continues to happen. Like, I cannot believe it. But here we were again tonight. And man, Carolina, phenomenal job to work their way back. But you shouldn't have to. And then they couldn't close. So it doesn't ultimately matter. There are no moral victories going on here. This is Carolina not knowing how to start or finish a game. 16 minutes after halftime, and the job they did to work it down to 12 at halftime, where things looked really good and hopeful and promising, but it doesn't matter. Now, another big factor, and I hate it because I even tweeted about this earlier in the day. This was number 3 in our Four Corners preview on today's Locked On Tar Heels show. What I called my something's got to give stat. It's when 2 strengths meet each other and they can't coexist. And in this game, where those strengths came together was Florida's really, really strong capability on the offensive glass and Carolina's strong capability on the defensive glass. Let me remind you that Florida came into this game 14th in the nation in offensive rebounds per game. Carolina came into the nation 14th in the nation in defensive rebounds per game. And so something had to give there. The big question for me was, will Carolina be able to finish defensive possessions with the rebound? Because if you play 28 seconds of great, strong, solid defense, communicating, calling switches, doing everything you need to do, but you get the team to miss a shot, very good, well done. But if you cannot then secure the miss, I would almost rather just let them score earlier so you got a chance to go down and score. So would Carolina be able to finish defensive possessions? At times, yes. But in some critical moments and in totality, no. And the Tar Heels' inability to finish those defensive possessions was ultimately their death penalty in this game, specifically their undoing in the final 2 possessions. They got Florida to miss the shots they needed to. Would have had the opportunity to go down and tie or take a lead or whatever you need to do late, but it was not there. Consequently, when we look at the total numbers for this game, Florida wins the rebounding battle 46-36. And Carolina did a great job on the offensive glass, 13 offensive rebounds, but Florida had 16 of them. And the key thing, like the extended version of this question was, I said, can Carolina finish defensive possessions with the rebound, or will Florida have a second chance points field day? Unfortunately, it was the field day variety as Florida wins the second chance points battle 23-14. And I mean, there are plenty of things where Carolina led statistically. Points in the paint, Carolina led 48-38. Points, fast break points, Carolina led 16-9. Carolina led steals 11-7. Multiple things like that. But if you're going to allow second chance points over and over and over again, you're doomed. If you cannot stop the other team from getting the ball when they shoot it, you essentially don't have a hope of winning a basketball game. And that's where things went tonight in this one. All right. Plenty more to get to. We do need to talk about some yay things like Ian Jackson, like the start of the second half. There were some encouraging things, but they're tempered because now you're 6-5, right? So we need to talk about those things, and we'll do that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about the college football playoff games coming to TNT this weekend. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting, high-flying action that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the CFP playoff begins December 21st. That's this Saturday, starting with the CFP kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. That'll lead right into the first matchup, SMU Mustangs at Penn State Nittany Lions. That's at noon. Following that is Clemson Tigers looking to go to Austin, Texas and upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and of course on Max. All right, let's get a box score pulled up here as we carry on with our conversation today, just so we can see what's going on and where things were. That is a little small. I recognize if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening back to this later, just go find your little box score elsewhere and you'll be able to follow along, and that'll be great. Okay, so here's where we want to go next. There certainly were some good things in this game. One of the things that Hubert Davis talked about, Myron Medcalf said this on the broadcast, was we weren't tough enough. We aren't tough enough. We aren't tough enough. And I tell you, coming out of that second half, it was like a bullet out of a gun, man. Carolina was off to the races. An 11-0 start that cut the lead to 1. Remember, Carolina had done a great job. You utilized the free throw line. They were 10 of 13 in the first half. Got it down to 46-34, which it's sad that was encouraging, but it was 12-point halftime deficit. And then they start the second half on an 11-0 run all the way down to 46-45. From there, Kansas stretches it, or Kansas. See, that's how much it feels like the Kansas game. Florida stretches it back out to 7, but Carolina doesn't let them take it back as far, and they keep reeling them back in. And that was a great job. So, the key is, one of the other Four Corners previews is I talked about, like, this is a game where you have to defend incredibly well and incredibly smartly and with a lot of communication. Why? Because Florida has length advantage on you, because their guards are so athletic, they can get past you. So you got to talk and you got to move and you got to do the early work defensively. And that's what happened in the second half. It was defense that led to this offensive onslaught right out of the gate. Carolina gets a steal. I think it was RJ. RJ misses the layup on the run out, but Carolina gets the ball back. It went out of bounds off Florida. Boom. RJ 3 off the blob. Then Seth Trimble gets that really nice deflection looking back over his shoulder, gets it steal, run out. Boom. And then just kept pouring it on. Van Allen Lubin block, and then he gets a tip dunk on the other side. Florida gets a miss. Drake Powell board. RJ hits a mid-range. That's what cut it all down. And that was great. But, man, like, that has to be in place, again, at the very beginning. And if it's not, it's pointless, essentially. I mean, it almost helped. But think about, if Carolina had done in the first half what they did in the second half, then you're not worried about learning how to close a game, because you put it out of reach already. That's what the Tar Heels are capable of and should be able to do. They just aren't. They don't. I don't know what it is, man. It drives me crazy, and I can only imagine how it feels to them and how it feels to the coaching staff, right? Like, I'm preaching to the choir, whether it's you all listening to and or watching this, and of course the team themselves. Like, right, we all know what's going on with that. There it is. A couple encouraging things from this game. RJ Davis, right? Like, we recognize as you look at the box score, if you're watching on YouTube, the 3-point shooting still was not there. He was 3 of 11 from 3. That's just not good enough. But outside of that, RJ had 29 points. He shot over 50% in totality for this game, 10 of 19. He was 6 of 7 from the free throw line. Unfortunately, that one miss was the front end of a 1-and-1 with Carolina up 2, I believe, in the final couple minutes. It was not good. In fact, Carolina went scoreless for the last, what was the trend? 2-13. They had done so well, and then they just couldn't do anything down the stretch. Partly because they couldn't get a rebound to get shots. That's tough. But what I love about RJ and what he's been doing so much of is even when his shot's not falling, he is a wily veteran and he does the things to win basketball games. 8 rebounds in this game for RJ Davis. Not joking. 8 rebounds, every one of them defensive. But you know what? Despite the fact that RJ Davis didn't shoot well from 3, he did everything he could to help his team. He led the North Carolina Tar Heels in rebounding in this game. He had 29 points. He needed other people to step up maybe a little more, but got 11 from Elliott, from Seth, and from Ian Jackson. And to go along with that, RJ, 4 steals. 4 steals in this game. That's great stuff. Carolina had double-digit steals for, I think that's now the 4th time this season. That is now more than they had in the entirety of last season. That is now, I think, tied. I think that's more than they had. Like, I think if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, somebody can go check it, but I think this is now 4 double-digit steals games this season, which is more than they had in any of the previous 3 Hubert Davis entire seasons. That's great stuff, man. Good job, RJ. And hopefully the 3 is going to come, but just keep finding ways to help this team, to help the team, even if the 3s aren't falling at the rate you want them to. The other thing, and I apologize that it's taken so long to get to this point, but man, Ian Jackson was an absolute revelation in that second half. And kudos to Carolina for finding something that worked and sticking with it. They kept switching to get Alex Condon, who's like 6'11", onto Ian, and Ian just put him on skates and went to work, man. I mean, it was pretty. Ian's ability to get to the lane and finish. That's key. Not just getting there, but getting the ball in the basket once you do get there. Because there's a lot of people that can get there, ain't a lot of people that can finish at a high level. And then the mid-range on Alex Condon had another impressive whirling dervish layup just a little bit later. Great stuff from Ian. Carolina is going to need to continue to figure out how to best utilize him. I'm sure I see there's a ton of comments over in the comment section. I haven't started scrolling them yet, but I can almost guarantee that when I do start looking at them, it's going to say Ian needs to start. The problem is I don't know who you take out to do that. Is it Elliott? Because there were times down the stretch of this game when I thought Carolina was a bit better with Elliott on the bench, but then he comes in, has a nice little hesitation layup, has that great assist to RJ on the baseline cut, and then the alley-oop lob to J-Wash, right? And so it's just, I don't know who you take out. Do you try him at the, no, man, he'd get killed at the 4 defensively. Do you take him out for Seth? I don't think so, because then you miss that defense. Like, I don't know how you start Ian Jackson. I think you got to continue to get him starters minutes, but it's just that backcourt rotation of 3G of Elliott, RJ, Seth, and getting Ian in there. Let me look at the minutes allocation in this game. Most minutes was RJ 36, then Seth 34, followed by Elliott 31, then Alan Lubin 23, and then Ian 22. So Ian, yet again, is getting starters minutes. That at least is encouraging. But, you know, At this point, at 6-5, while I say I don't know who you take out of the lineup to start Ian, you got to do something to change the dynamics of the first half. And if that means starting Ian, then by golly, you got to start Ian and get somebody else out. I don't know what you do, but you got to do something. And I think that's the key for me. Like, you know, how often have we talked about the frustration of let's see Carolina try something different defensively, because what they're doing isn't working. And I get that the thing you try might not work either, but you got to try something. And that's where I'm at. I'd like to see Carolina at least try some more things. Another thing I want to mention, and I guess this one actually is more of a negative, not more of a negative. It's very negative. 3-point shooting in this game. Yeah, we all know how bad it was. In the first half, Carolina was 2 of 16. What was this? We're 0 for the first 11. Am I remembering that correctly? Or was it 0 for the first? I feel like it was 0 of 11. And then Elliott hit one to make it 1 of 12. I mean, it's just crazy. And for the game, Florida finishes shooting 34% from 3. That ain't setting the world on fire, but it's nearly double Carolina's percentage. And it's Florida made more than double of the threes that Carolina made. Even if they didn't double up their percentage, they more than doubled up their number of 3-point makes. 11 of 32, while Carolina shot 5 of 28, which is 18% from 3. 18%. You make 2 more of those, maybe 3. You win this basketball game. It doesn't take much. Doesn't take much. Like, let's say Carolina made 3 more threes. 8 out of 28. That's still just 28.6%. That ain't that great, but it would have been enough to win this basketball game. And therein lies a big part of Carolina's problem. They're so short in the backcourt, and frankly, with what they're doing in the front court now, just going small, which is fine, and I've advocated for that. But the problem is you can't be small and not shoot good. I should really say shoot well, but it just sounds better. You can't be small and not shoot good, because if no shoot good, no win basketball. That is the stark reality of where things are at right now for the Tar Heels. If Carolina had shot even remotely decently from 3, they would have won this basketball game. Right? You're with me on that. Absolutely. Mark Campbell was supposed to join me, was unable to. Just things got a little bit crazy at their house tonight. Kids, man, that's what happens. But one of the things he said to me as we were texting back and forth, some notes to share, is he said, I'm going to quote what Mark texted me. College coaches haven't shifted their mindset as much as the NBA, but it's still the same math problem. 3 is greater than 2. He says, we are losing. I love this. I hate that I love this quote because it means Carolina's doom in this game, but it's a great quote. Mark said, we are losing the math in almost every big game. Let me say that again. We are losing the math in almost every big game. Mark went on to tell me, we create enough good shots. We don't make enough of the great ones we create. And how true is that? Like, the shots are there. All of those misses in the first half from 3, I guess I shouldn't blanketly say all of them. The vast majority were the right shot to take in rhythm. In the flow of the offense, Carolina just couldn't knock them down, man. Plain and simple. They weren't going down. And that's what Mark's saying. We create enough good shots. We don't make enough of them. And he says that's the difference in every significant loss. The other teams make more of the great shots than we do. End quote. That's great stuff from Mark, man. And it's so true. And unfortunate that it's so true, but it is. Mark also said, man, we just turned the ball over way too much. Carolina cut down on this one. That's the first half. I was like, there's no way that's the total. 10 total turnovers in this game, which really isn't that bad. But a lot of them came in inopportune times. Elliott, 7 assists, just like he did Saturday against LaSalle, but had 4 turnovers. And one of them, for example, you recall, was in a critical moment. down the stretch of the game, driving and just loses the handle and it goes off his like thigh or knee. Man, every possession has to matter in a big way. And there are times when it looks like Carolina doesn't embrace that reality at the level they should. As Mark also said to me, we just are making it so hard on ourselves to win basketball games. All right, so there's certainly a lot more to look at. There are a truck ton of comments and questions and stuff from you guys, so I want to get to those. We'll leave the box score up so you can look at that as we chat. All of that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at FanDuel. Look, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers, you can bet $5, and if you win, you get $150 back in bonus bets. What's cool is that the FanDuel Sportsbook app, man, it gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one space. It's like a one-stop shopping. So maybe you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play. So much more right there on that same page where you placed your bets. We don't have the line yet from FanDuel for the UCLA game on Saturday, but I can imagine who's favored. And Carolina's going to be desperate. Might be time to roll with the heels. If you want to do so, do it at FanDuel.com to play today. So never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, let us get to all the wonderful comments and questions from you guys because I know that there's a bunch of them. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say, though, before I looked over at it. Yes, two things. Number one, Jay Wash finished this game 3 of 6, and that's fine. I think, though, that 4 or 6 or 5 of 6 would have been better in this game. And I know that's asking a lot, but here's the thing. Feel like Jalen Washington is not strong enough around the rim. He's got to finish more capably. There was that alley-oop from Elliott. I mean, he was ferocious finishing that. More of that, please, and thank you, sir. I'll take that very much. And then the other thing, man, we talked about how will Cade Tyson follow up his 23-point outburst from Saturday against LaSalle? Well, he did. He followed it up playing 15 minutes, which is encouraging. I was a little surprised to see him in the game as much as I did late, but it's good for him to be getting those minutes. But he goes from 23 points against LaSalle to 0 points in this basketball game. 10 different Tar Heels played. He was the only one that didn't score at least 1 point. 0 of 3 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. There was another 3 that had he handled the pass cleanly, he was wide open in the corner. I think he buries it, but he didn't. Cade had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and then really no other stats. He was a +5. That's encouraging, although plus minus to me it's useful, but it's not the biggest end all be all that there is for us. So that's where we're at. Carolina drops this game 90-84. Obviously on tomorrow's full show, on Wednesday's show, have a lot more to talk about and unpack. Ow, I just killed my knuckles on my recording desk. And then Coach Rob and I will be together on Thursday to unpack some of this as well. Just lots of things coming in. Man, it is difficult, folks. As you can imagine, after a game like this, there's a lot of calls for Hubert Davis's job. And so understood. We got some Florida fans in the chat. Always great to see that. Derek Tyson, our guy Derek, says, and I want to bring this up because I was talking about it earlier and I want to continue to process it. Derek says Ian Jackson starting is not a crazy statement anymore. And I agree with that. I don't know right now who I would put him in their place. But I'm with you. I don't think that's a crazy statement. I think it is a worthwhile thing to very strongly consider. And that is the reality of where things are at. Ryan Tots says, which awesome name. I love it. TOTZ, Ryan. says, we will miss tournament again this year and be in bubble 3 times in the last 4 years. There were multiple people talking about different NCAA tournament things, but this is a reality right now. And as Ryan says, be in the bubble 3 times in the last 4 years. And you might think about that and be like, what, really? Well, Carolina was firmly in the bubble conversation before beating Duke in Coach Davis's first year. And that basically solidified it at that point. And so Carolina was off the bubble safely at that point, but very bubbly before that. The second year, when Carolina started preseason number 1 and missed the tournament, very much a bubble team, and unfortunately very close to much closer to making the NCAA tournament than I think many people realized. Last year, not a bubble team. Carolina was very safe and secure in the field. But right now, when the only team of note you got left in the non-con is UCLA, and then you got the ACC slate that may or may not do you much good, you're because of what Carolina has not been able to do in the non-conference, they've played the right teams, but at some point, as I said earlier, losing matters. And when you start losing, you need conference games to make up for that. And Carolina has some, but it's not enough to cover the sins of these 5 non-conference losses. It just isn't. Even beating UCLA on Saturday, that'll be nice and that'll help. And Carolina is good grief. Earlier today I called this do or die week. Now it's do or die Saturday. And even the do doesn't do as much for you since you lost this game. Carolina, in my opinion, right now, to Ryan's point and others who are asking about the NCAA tournament, I think they got to finish top 2 in the ACC to feel confident and comfortable. And even then, it's going to depend on who those wins are against and what that looks like. Carolina's gotta go in the ACC blazing. Thankfully, they're already 1-0. They survived against Georgia Tech. They're 10 road games ahead still in the ACC. You probably need to go 9-1, if not 10-0 at home in ACC play, and 6-4, 7-3 on the road to feel good about things. Carolina, I truly still believe, has the talent to do it. We saw it in the second half of this game. But there has not yet been the consistency to tell you that they can do it. Or that they will do it. I guess I should say it that way. And that's where we're at right now. Oh man, lot of Hubert Davis hate. Or not hate, but just like, ugh. Because at some point, I mean, all of these losses truly are to ranked teams. And I'm not saying Carolina should win some of those basketball games. It turns out should have won the Kansas game despite the hole. Should have won this game despite the margin. Should have beat Michigan State. And you feel complete. If Carolina's only losses right now were Auburn and Alabama, to the state of Alabama, I mean, you wouldn't be like, yes, we're killing it. But you would feel wildly different than you do right now. If Carolina had simply completed the comeback against Kansas, same thing tonight, and had taken care of Michigan State. We're having completely different conversations right now. And that's tough to swallow. So there it is. Man, just lots of, I'm just looking to see if there's any other, DJ Ray says, what's up, Ray? Can we play JB, please? James Brown. I mean, he's done some nice things. I think it's worth at least giving him some spot minutes just to say, hey, can he do it? Right? When other guys are getting bullied in the paint, why not? Speaking of the paint, holy smokes, Carolina threw an entry pass to Vin Allen Lubin tonight, and he scored. What do you know? It is possible. Obviously, I'm speaking very tongue-in-cheek here, but I would like to see Carolina at least try more of that, getting the ball into the paint and see what can happen. Tar Heels and Kick says we have to win the ACC tournament to make the NCAA tournament. I'm not that far yet. I hear why you're saying that. I'm not that far. But it's tough, you guys. Very tough. All right. It's late. Almost 11:30 on the East Coast. Almost 10:30 my time. And let me a Florida fan in here. We had a couple Florida fans, but Compressor V6 says, good game, fellas. Impressive second half. Y'all had Clayton frustrated. Good luck the rest of the season. To you too, Compressor. Gators are a legit team. It's clear and obvious. And yes, getting Walter Clayton Jr. frustrated was a big deal. Had his third foul early in the second half and kind of took him out of some of the rhythm. Finishes with just 12 points. That's 12 points is very solid. It's 7 under his season average. And so you'll certainly take that. But man, again, wasted opportunities. Okay, you guys, Carolina, going to have to get back to it this weekend, Saturday at Madison Square Garden against UCLA. So we'll spend some more time this week getting ready for that and seeing what Carolina has ahead of them. Obviously, we'll continue to look at Carolina as they build their football coaching staff, as guys commit more coming out of the portal. Today, we learned that Kobe Paysour, is going to stick around. Guys just keep coming back. Amari Campbell, he's sticking around. I love it. All of that. So anyway, we'll talk about those things, much more from the basketball game. The women play in the Jumpman Invitational Wednesday night. Baseball schedule was released on Tuesday. So we got a lot to cover on Wednesday's full show. Make sure you tune in for that so you don't miss a second of it. If you haven't subscribed to the show on YouTube and audio, make sure you do that so you don't miss a second. If you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there. It's free to join, and the link is in the show notes. Join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, free for 2 weeks, and then it's just $5 a month after that. A great way to help support the show. You can chat directly with me. Check out all the stats and data that I make available to those people. Several great perks with that. All right, you guys know the drill. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We're going to talk again tomorrow on the Wednesday show. But until then, peace.